Hello and welcome to Spotlight One. I'm Karen York. We are here to get some answers from our superintendent to questions that were submitted by students, parents, and staff. And here he is, our superintendent, Dr. Craig Witherspoon. Dr. Witherspoon, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Doing well.
Glad to have you back on Spotlight One. I think it's been about a couple of months since we did our last show, so good to have you back.
Yeah, glad to be back. Yeah.
So since this is the first time you've been back since we did the show a little into the start of the school year, how are things looking? I know you're out in the schools all the time. What have you seen as you visited schools?
Absolutely. First of all, I want to thank our teachers, our staff, administrators, parents, students, and all for the opening of school. We have a number of our most of our students back. We do have secondary virtual and elementary virtual. Most of our students are back.
Right.
And we even did gain some students back from the previous year and a half as we dealt with COVID. So we also know from our last taping, since our last taping with masks and our other social distancing and other mitigating strategies, just like across the country and across the state, across Richland County, those numbers and incident rates, trend rates are greatly improved.
Right.
So we appreciate that. And but we still know there's, lack of a better term, there's still that COVID stress, if you will. And working through that, I appreciate everyone's ability to work work through that as we move forward. We have some students that are now in classrooms that may not have been in a classroom for a year and a half or so. Working through those transitions, although we've certainly been in school.
Right.
But I guess the term new normal,
yes,
if you will, still applies during those transitions. But we're continuing to move forward, so we appreciate those efforts.
Right. And speaking of COVID, we'll get into some questions related to COVID.
Sure.
But of course, there's been a major development in terms of the vaccine being approved for children ages 5 to 11.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Opportunity again to help bring those numbers down, to reduce the spread and the like. And yes, that was the CDC gave emergency use authorization for that. And I would ask our parents, please consult with your child's doctor, your healthcare provider, with any questions that you may have in that regard. The same as when we talked about when the vaccine was available for students 12 and up. Consult with your physician and to see if that's something that's right for your child and your family as we all work to bring COVID to a manageable place in our country.
Right. So there's definitely information on DHEC's website,
absolutely,
CDC's website, and of course, as you said, your healthcare provider will have information as well.
Yes.
So let's dive right into some questions.
Yes.
Again, first starting with some COVID-related questions. Of course, everything is kind of COVID-related
right now.
But of course, we still have our mask requirement in place for all of our students and staff.
We do. Certainly going into the school year, just a recap, things were better this summer, and then the Delta variant came back, and our board did reaffirm the face covering policy, which includes masks. Same with the City of Columbia, same with Richland County. And there were some Supreme Court cases. Also, federal district court judge made a ruling as well. But through all of that, we do have our mask mandate still in place. Again, I want to thank our students and our staff and our parents for working with us on that, because we've seen our numbers in Richland One, although they're lower right now across the board, but our numbers in Richland One remained lower whether we're talking about quarantining or cases, number and percentage-wise, than some other locations.
Right.
Which means more of our students were able to be in class, to be in school, and to have those types of interactions. So we do appreciate that. Also, I had an opportunity to talk with DHEC officials on yesterday, just to ask in terms of would there be any movement or recommendation changes with regard to masks, given that the numbers have decreased. And then they advised not at this point. As we know, we're getting ready to enter into the holiday season. And if we look at some of the trend data from recent history, we know COVID cases or even flu cases and so forth tend to go back up during these times.
People are gathering, family and friends.
Absolutely.
And,
So as this district has done, and again, I appreciate the board's efforts, I appreciate everyone working together. We have been cautious through this, and we want to continue to look at the safety side and those implications with that. I think that has served us well. So we'll continue to monitor. We'll continue to look at those recommendations that come from our healthcare officials and make some decisions. But the guidance that we've received is, we still need to stay the course in this regard with regard to masks, while certainly we get through this season, if you will.
So the first couple of questions really tie into what you were just responding to. So one of our parents said, I think it's time to let go of mask mandates and let parents choose. What data are you looking at for these decisions? And the next question started off with COVID infections continue to decline. We talked about declining numbers.
Yes.
And the question there was, once the City of Columbia's mask ordinance is lifted, will the district lift its mask mandate?
And again, alluded to that a little bit in here. We still want to be cautious.
Right.
Again, some information I did receive from DHEC officials, but we do monitor the numbers. We do have our dashboard that is continuously updated daily. So we go take a look at that, and we do see that things are decreasing. But at this point, the advisement is to continue to stay diligent as we move forward in these next couple of months.
Great. So next COVID-related question is, since COVID cases are on the decline, and we've gotten this question a lot, when can parents expect to be allowed back into schools for volunteering and visiting with their children?
Absolutely, and that's a question we continue to get, and we certainly appreciate our parents' involvement and engagement in their child's education. But again, we're continuing to assess that, and we will look at that in terms of any change, possibly second semester.
Okay.
And if we look at the calendar, we've got a couple of weeks now before Thanksgiving break. Then we come back. They're about 3 weeks before winter break,
right.
And we're out. And again, as I just talked about, those numbers and what may tend to happen. So we've got a few weeks before we get into the winter break, and then back for second semester, assess, and then we'll make a decision at that time.
Okay. All right. Second semester.
Yes.
Okay. So as everyone knows, by the hiring signs you see when you drive down any street, just about restaurants, businesses of all kinds, and then of course Richland One. So this question relates to staffing needs. So the question was asked about a particular school, but the person said our school's campus is not being maintained as advertised due to a lack of custodial staff and ground support. What specifically has been done in the last 2 years to get more custodial staff And can newly obtained federal funds be used to attract qualified employees?
Absolutely. Just as you've talked about, some of the supply chain issues, the staffing issues that we're reading and hearing about nationwide certainly impact us as well. That being said, I want to thank and certainly show our appreciation for all of Team Richland One that are with us, continuing to move through and work through this challenging time. While dealing with quarantine themselves, sometimes dealing with illness and sickness and death of loved ones themselves. While still trying to remain committed, certainly to the district's mission and meeting the needs of all of the district. So I want to make that statement.
Right.
At the same time, yes, those staffing issues with regard to custodial, student nutrition, and other departments is a concern.
Bus drivers?
Bus drivers, those things are concerns for us. We have, as the parent indicated, we have put in place some additional bonuses, additional incentive structures with the use of those federal dollars to assist in that. We've had several career fairs, and we'll continue to do those. And we know as we look at putting more incentives in place and help others put more incentives in place, then we have to go back and put more incentives in place and so forth. So everybody is dealing with this. But in the meantime, again, I want to thank our folks. We had an opportunity a couple of weeks ago to have and thanks to your naming, Richland One Exhales. And a part of that is certainly we want to look at those monetary incentives and those things that we can do. But we also have to look at now, some of those working environments, some of those things that where we can, again, relieve some of that stress and some of that pressure. So we had an opportunity where staff could work from home, and we appreciate the feedback that we got from that, and we'll be looking at some other, which was good,
yes,
very good, and we'll be looking at other types of things that we can do. I'll give you another example of the challenges that we face. We've to help with this. We do have a number of staffing agencies that assist us, if you will. Sometimes with nurses,
right.
Sometimes with other aspects, lawn service and so forth and so on. But as we've looked to see how we could beef up and keep those things in place, we found that some of these staffing agencies are having issues staffing.
Wow.
In order to help entities. So we realize it, we recognize it, and what we can do to attract and retain, we do try to do to help. I know some of the landscaping issues have indeed been addressed, and they're going around and continuing to look at those things. Again, given the staffing that we have, and given how we can work with those sites, and also the rub is the individuals that we have that are working hard, sometimes we're having to work even harder.
Right. Yeah. And
then again, that builds on itself as well. So we recognize it, we understand it, we appreciate everyone in the organization for what they do. We have even sent out to some of our offices and buildings, listen, to keep staff in certain locations, we have to clean our own desks.
Pitch in.
we have to pitch in
Right.
and do some things. So again, we all realize it and recognize it, and we'll continue to deal with that, certainly in the best way that we can.
Yeah, and like you said, it's a reality not just for Richland One, but all over. This is all over the country.
Yes,
so,
it is. Yeah.
So the next question is about hotspots.
Yes.
Parent wants to know, why does Richland One not have the actual AT&T hotspots to offer to parents again this school year, especially knowing that the Moxie hotspots don't work in some areas where students live?
Mm-hmm. Well, we still distribute hotspots, and again, we have some students that are in our virtual program, and otherwise, we still have the Wi-Fi on the buses, and we increase some access points in schools and around schools as well. And that was certainly a project that we had in place prior to the pandemic, and we tried to accelerate that. We do know, as the parent has indicated, that in certain locations in the district there are some connectivity issues, because if there's not broadband there's nothing for the hotspot to pick up on, and to transfer and transmit data. And that's something I know there's been some broadband discussions nationally, statewide, and certainly here in Richland County, and those efforts continue. And but if there are some issues, again, I would ask parent, contact school. We can see what we can do. We know we have a number of faith-based entities that assist with some of these connectivity activities, opening up their fellowship halls and so forth. So we do try to work with our families on that, and different companies or vendors, so to speak, may have different types of connectivity and so forth, and we do try to manage all of that, if you will. So we still distribute hotspots and so forth, but we'll continue to work with our families on that.
Of course, that broadband access is very much still an issue.
Still an issue,
right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, the infrastructure has to be there.
Yeah.
So you talked earlier about some of the adjustments that are being made as students are back, fully face-to-face. Of course, we still have some in virtual programs, but some little issues that may have developed as students are now face-to-face with each other. So first question is, how do you plan to fix the bullying situation? And then the second related question is, why can't students go back to learning virtually? There's too much going on in the schools. Fighting, guns in schools, knives being brought to schools, COVID, you name it.
Yeah. Let's talk about the first one, the bullying situation, and we have a number of things in place, if you will, with that. We have the signage. We have our counselors, our support staff there, our administrators, and we want to continue to emphasize a positive and safe climate and culture in our schools. And that's something we continue to do. We continue to revisit. We continue to ask students to, hey, let us know. We ask parents, let us know. So those issues can be investigated. We can take a look at what's going on before things get to a point where something serious happens, and we continue to stress that. We ask parents, continue to be engaged with your child, continue to keep those lines of communication open, and we do have protocols for investigating, and our code of conduct, and that is something, I reached out to parents, I think right at the end of September, with some challenges, if you will, on social media.
Yes.
And we know, and we talk about the different time that we're in. Sometimes a lot of these things happen via social media. And again, we have to investigate, get to the bottom of it, but we want to continue to do that. as we move forward. So let us know. And I will say to our students, again, we've been apart. We've been back now, certainly a few months now, leading to the holidays. But let's practice that civility. If there are things that are going on that need to be dealt with, let us know. But there is a positive way to deal with things. I know that's, from us sometimes that's easier said than done. I know we've all been young and so forth, get a little older. But I will say to our students, we've been there. Sometimes our young people don't want to hear that.
Right.
But let us help before it gets to a point that things escalate to a more serious level. And we will be doing some things in the future. We're talking about social emotional learning. We're talking about some of the stresses and things that are going on, that we will have some student activities. And I know our schools do that on a regular basis, either through their advisor period, through other programs that our counselors have in place. But we're examining that to see, again, what else can we do? And there are some activities and some things that we're planning for the future that not only gives our students, hey, here's another way to deal with things, but also how we all can come together, if you will. Sometimes, with our young people or even our adults, when those incidents happen, and we've talked about this a lot, we want to get to the root cause, the why. Why is this happening? Why, if there's something going on, we lash out at another individual versus dealing with, okay, what's going on? Right. Again, so we can get to the bottom of it. We can put some things in place. But that's a piece of it as well. So to our students and to our parents, we'll be giving you more information about that as we move forward. Second piece to that question was virtual, and we should go back to virtual. And this one's interesting because, rewind the clock a few months or a year or so ago, it was, we got to get back, we got to get back, we got to get back. And understandably so, understandably. And then at the beginning of this year, we're back, we need to go back virtual, we need to go back virtual, we need to go back virtual from parents. And we understand that. We certainly understand the various opinions and feelings about that. I shared at the last taping that there were some structures and things put in place, either legislatively or State Department wise, that essentially put some limits on virtual activities. What certain a percentage that you could have and how that worked. And I know after some time we kind of got used to last school year. We're virtual with the class, right. And then we made adjustments as we went along, and we shared, that virtual piece had to look different this year. More even with our students that are in the virtual programs now, there's got to be a certain amount of asynchronous or same time, real time activities going on, and so forth. So we didn't have, going into this year, as much flexibility this year as we did last year.
Including with the number that you can have in
including virtual. The number of students that could be in a virtual program without a financial penalty. So we don't have this year that flexibility that we could do some of the things we did last year. Right. But at the same time, we do have a number of students that are in our virtual programs, both at the secondary level and at the elementary level, and continuing to move that forward. And we also know some of our virtual programming, as we've learned and throughout this time, It worked well for some students. It did not work well for some others.
Right.
And I will share with you, we've had some students in our virtual program right now that we've had to go back to the parent and the child, this is not working. We need you to come to school. Again, I understand the parents' concern in terms of what's going on, COVID and those types of things. And we're also very well aware of the incidents and things that are happening and occurring. So we want to make sure we stay on top of those things as well. So I do understand the parents' concern. Right. We absolutely do. But we want to address those things. We want to make sure our students are in the optimum learning environment. And that we have interventions and systems and processes in place to deal with incidents when they occur.
Mm-hmm. So if a student is being bullied, the student needs to report that.
That is correct.
Okay. Also, if any students see anything or hear anything that they think may pose a threat to their school, students, and staff, report it.
Report it.
Right.
Talk with your parents. Parents, let us know. We will investigate, and again, we want to make sure that students feel safe, our parents feel good about sending their students to school, and we have to deal with those things again in order for us to have an optimum learning environment.
Definitely.
Yes.
So the next parent wants to just get your take on something. So this parent says, I am a parent supporter of the gifted and honors classes. What are your thoughts on other states looking into eliminating these programs for students?
Well, that is a piece, as the parent indicates, that some other states are looking at. By the same token, schools are looking at our colleges, universities not using ACT and SAT tests and so forth. I think we get to the point with the question, as we talk about a lot here, that access and those opportunities and options that we provide for students to excel, go beyond where they are, and making sure that students are exposed to rigorous curriculum. Whether they are identified as gifted and being provided that exposure, or whether they didn't score a certain number on a test that qualifies them as gifted, and then perhaps not having access to that more rigorous curriculum. So go back several years, multiple years, and as we know in the state of South Carolina, they are based on test scores and so forth. Students could be state identified as gifted. Okay. Well, this district and certainly work of the board number of years ago said, let's look at a local identification. Let's look at not only test scores, but let's look at other aspects, and what could we do to be sure if students did have to take another assessment or something that they're exposed. And again, just to make a point here, as we talk about quite often, a single score does not identify a student's success. Right. Moving forward or not.
Potential.
Or what's in there, and we know, and there are studies and data that's out there, it's, are you going to work hard? Are you going to have that resilience to yes, I may not have done well, a test at second, third grade, but as they matriculate through the system, yes, that potential and that growth is there. Right. So we wanted to look at some other things. So the district does have a local identification that increases the pool of students that qualify, if you will, as gifted. And we've done something the last couple of years with our Young Einstein program and with our Einstein 2.0 to further that in terms of if there's some skills and activities, exposure that students, again, did not have in those early years through no fault of their own,
Right.
we beef those up. And yes, with a little more exposure, a little more help, students can do better. So we've got data to suggest that there's some positive outcomes from that, which gives students more access. We also looked at that Einstein 2.0 because, again, depending on what students bring to the table initially, there needs to be some continued support. That's our Einstein 2.0 to make sure they continue to perform well with more rigorous material. So we want to eliminate those barriers, as the parent has indicated, but provide those supports as well, so students' potential can be cultivated and they can have that opportunity to be involved and engaged. But again, another point that I think the parent is trying to make is all students or any student should have that opportunity.
Right.
And we do agree with that. But we want to, again, undergird that with that support, with that exposure, so that, as the saying goes, a rising tide lifts all ships. So that we support those efforts initially and as we move forward, so that across any given classroom, that rigor and that access can be enhanced.
For all students.
For all students.
All students. So, of course, we have many wonderful programs in Richland One, and there are points of pride among our many points of pride, and one of them is our language immersion program.
Yes.
So this parent wants to know, what is the plan for fifth graders in the language immersion program? Will this program move to middle school with them?
Very good question. And time has flown since we started our immersion program.
Definitely.
A number of years ago. That is currently being looked at right now. I know for our immersion families, I think grades 3 through 5, we surveyed them. What are your thoughts? If we build it, will they come, so to speak, so that we can do that planning. What does the staffing look like? What impacts that may have, not only with the language, with the various languages, but how that might impact other classes that the student may need to take as well. So staff has been doing some work on that for the last couple of months. We're about to conclude some of that. We had to get some feedback from our parents.
Right.
And I know that too is kind of the chicken and egg. Well, is it there? And then us asking, if we build it, will you come? And all of that. So we've gotten that information. We're synthesizing that, and we will be reaching out to those parents very soon to talk about next steps and what that will look like. So parents, just give us a little bit of time. We will be following up with our immersion parents on next steps.
So obviously that's great that there is an interest
Absolutely.
in expanding it beyond elementary.
Absolutely.
So, yeah,
Absolutely.
That is great to hear.
Yes.
So lunches often come up when you talk with students. So this question that has to do with meals at school comes
Sure.
from a parent. And this parent says the kids often come home and say that the lunches have run out by the time their class gets to the cafeteria. What are you all doing to ensure that there's enough food to ensure that there's enough food to go around? Have you all secured any funding for this issue?
Absolutely, and we do get the lunch question quite a lot. And when I'm out and about in schools, I eat the school lunch, and actually, it's fine with me.
Right.
Look forward to sitting down with students at their tables, and I kind of get the looks, and then as I start eating, they start eating too, and we have some great conversations. So I spoke earlier about supply chain and some of those issues. We have not seen that with our student nutrition department. I did talk with our director literally right before taping, so that make sure that hasn't changed. And we've heard about that in some other places. I did share with a couple with our students, my student advisory group, high school group that I meet with, and prior to COVID, we would go tour our central kitchen. And interestingly enough, the district runs about 50 restaurants.
Right.
If you really think about it, we've got a chain of 50 restaurants. And sometimes when you go to a restaurant and the wait staff will come to you and, well, what are your specials today? Oh, we have this and this and this. And then you say, well, I would like this. Oh, we're out of this, but we do have these other menu options. So sometimes what happens, depending on what students eat and so forth, and we do talk to our students. We do taste testing with students at different schools, not certain schools, just different schools.
Right.
When we try new menu items and so forth, we do get our students feedback. But sometimes a particular item may run out. It's not that we run out of food. We may have run out of a certain item. But there are other items to choose from. And one of the things, again, running a series of restaurants, our student nutrition department, they do monitor, what's being eaten. And one interesting thing about it is we try to reduce, and we have reduced food waste. We don't want food being thrown away. So if there's an item or something that's not being eaten, they make menu adjustments.
Right.
So sometimes, again, there might be out of an item, and student will go home and say they didn't have any food. They ran out of food when I got to lunch. They might have run out of something because that was a popular menu item today, and so the next time that menu item comes up, there'll be more of those, more of that. So they do make those adjustments. And I will say as well, what we've noticed this year is more students across the district are eating in the cafeteria. That number is actually up. Good. And it's actually up across the district, which is a good thing.
And of course, all of our students eat meals at no cost.
At no cost. Right. We are a community eligibility provision district. So our students do have the opportunity to eat meals at no cost. But at the same time, we want to be as efficient as we can, because, and again, they monitor the consumption, the various items that are eaten. And they do make those adjustments. So when we get the student feedback, either in person or what has been consumed in a given day or a given week, those adjustments are indeed made.
Right. So that pizza may have been very popular yesterday, but we didn't literally run out of food at a particular school.
That is correct. That is correct.
All right.
Yeah.
So the last question, and parents are looking ahead.
Yes.
We're almost to the midway point of this year, but they're looking ahead to next year, and a parent wants to know, when will the calendar for 2022-2023 be announced?
Absolutely. Well, the calendar committee has started its work. As our parents know, there are a lot of things that parameters that we have to follow. You can't start before the third Monday, with students and so forth. But we know, again, from this year and other years, there are some different ways we want to approach the calendar. We do let the calendar committee do its work. We put out at least 2 drafts early in this next calendar year. Right. And we do get that feedback. And might we approach the calendar a little differently, again, given some things we've seen, and feedback from staff and feedback from our parents, feedback from our students. there may indeed be a different approach to the calendar.
Okay.
But those things will come in early January, February of 2020 to prepare. And our parents want to know. They
Right.
want to, we're coming up on Thanksgiving, but okay, when is that break going to be in the following, in
Yes.
the next calendar year, and those holidays and so forth? When's graduation? All of those things that parents want to know. So we do indeed understand that. And I'll tell you, one of the things, the feedback that we got from parents and others, we used to do those parent conferences and so forth on a Thursday, or have some work days and so forth on a Thursday. So students would come Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, out of school on Thursday, then coming back on Friday. So some feedback we got about a year ago was put those days on a Friday.
Right. Which makes sense.
So that, students are there 4 days and there's not that 1 day break and then you're back and so forth. So that's some feedback we did receive through the calendar process, which includes that feedback.
Right.
So that information is forthcoming. Your shop will put that on the website.
Yes.
We'll get that feedback. But it just does indicate we do listen, and we take those recommendations to heart when they come.
Wonderful. Well, Dr. Witherspoon, we appreciate you coming on the show as always to answer some questions for us, and we look forward to having you back.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. And thank you for joining us for Spotlight One.